Okay, so the structure of the session is that we're going to hear from our two guest speakers, and they'll talk for about 10 minutes. And then after that, we're going to have some Q&A. So you can ask questions. So we'll have about 20-25 minutes for questions, and then we'll do some wrapping up and end the session. Okay, so I'm going to hand over to Claire.
Cool. Okay, so hi everyone, my name's Claire and I'm a STEM outreach officer here at Newcastle University. So you might be thinking, what is an outreach officer? It's definitely not something when I was your age or even younger that I was like, yeah, I'm going to be an outreach officer. That's what I want to do. Like, didn't know what it was, didn't know it was a job that existed. So it's something that I've kind of almost fallen into, but I do really enjoy. So I'm going to talk you through what I do first of all, and then I'll kind of go back a bit and work my way to how I got here. So STEM stands for science, technology, engineering and maths. And a big part of my job is telling young people like yourselves and a little bit younger than you what those subjects are, what they involve, and how you can kind of study them at university and what you can do after that. So kind of getting people more enthusiastic about STEM subjects and raising their aspirations as well. So in doing that, I develop and deliver STEM workshops in schools across the UK. And we also do events on campus, which I organise and invite school students in to come and join us and show them around campus, see all the facilities and things like that. And I also manage a team of street scientists who are all current students here at Newcastle University. And they do a lot of our primary school outreach work. And they also do a thing called science busking, which is kind of, it's not like busking, like asking for money, but they do like science demonstrations, engage the public and families with those at events and festivals. And they used to do it out on the streets, hence the name Street Scientists. So that's kind of an overview of what my job involves. But if we go back many years to my A levels, I kind of didn't really do like my A levels in a normal kind of straightforward way. It's a little bit of a mess. I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I was picking my A levels. At that time, I kind of wanted to do something a little bit more arty. So I actually started doing A-level maths in year 11. So I was in an advanced class where I did GCSE maths in 1 year and then A-level maths in year 11, or AS the first year anyway. Not by choice, I was just in top set and got pushed into it. I didn't really enjoy it, didn't really like maths. My maths teacher was like, you should stick with this, you are doing quite well. And I was like, nah, I'm going to be all arty and be creative. So in year 12, I chose to do art, English literature, English language, and then psychology, because I thought psychology sounded bit interesting, something a bit different, thought I'd give it a go. And then about halfway through that year, I started to hate most of the subjects apart from psychology, and I kind of realized I wasn't very good at them and I didn't really get it. So my English language, I think it was my English literature teacher, kept saying there's no like right or wrong answer, it's all about your opinion, like how do you interpret this, that kind of thing. And I was kind of like, well, why is my opinion not worth an A? Like, I just couldn't really get my head around it. And people would be kind of saying stuff in class like, yeah, I think this green light symbolizes this and it means this. And I was like, maybe they just wrote down that it was green, like maybe it doesn't mean anything. And it was just kind of not for me. But I really enjoyed psychology. I thought that was really interesting, learning about how we think and how we behave and how our mind kind of works. Like, I was really fascinated by that. And I quickly realized that I preferred subjects like maths and sciences where there's a right and a wrong answer, and you're actually learning about how things work, and this is, you know, how the world works, and this is what we know, and that kind of stuff, rather than the humanities, which I struggled in. So I decided to change my subjects. So in year 13, I did biology, chemistry, and carried on with psychology. And at this point, I kind of thought maybe I want to be a doctor, because I didn't really know what else to do with sciences. And as soon as I maybe mentioned it once, my parents and teachers and everyone was like, yes, you should be a doctor. That's a really good thing to do. You should definitely do that. And I'm not a doctor. You may have found out. Didn't work out. But I carried on year 14. So I did next year at sixth form, finished biology, chemistry and maths. And I did apply to do medicine at university, but I didn't get in. So I did really well, got 4 A's at A-level, did really well on the UCAT test that you have to do if you want to do medicine, but nowhere apart from Newcastle offered me an interview, and I just absolutely flopped the interview. It was awful, but I kind of realised I wasn't applying to do medicine for the right reasons. I don't think I'd be a very good doctor, but I really liked Newcastle when I came up here, and that kind of made me want to come here. And then I was thinking, like, what else can I do? And I decided to go for biology and psychology, because that's a course you can do here at Newcastle. So it's a joint honours. So you'll see when you guys are already nearly at university. So a joint honours degree is like kind of 2 degrees put together. So I did half of biology modules and half psychology modules. And these are just some of the modules that I studied. So things like animal behaviour, biological psychology was my favourite module. We were kind of looking at the effects of drugs on the brain and the body, and the effects of like lack of sleep and mental health kind of states and things like that. We did a lot of genetics, evolution, eating disorders, which was really interesting. I think a lot of people don't realise that that's like a mental health condition, and the individual differences. We looked at like intelligence and personality. So lots of interesting things, a lot of it built on psychology and biology at A-level, and then a lot of it kind of expanded into different areas that we hadn't covered before as well. So I found it really interesting. And while I was at university, I did lots of extracurricular activities as well. So me and my flatmates in first year all got together and founded the Baking Society, because we like to bake. And we thought if we made a society with the Students' Union, they'd give us money for ingredients and like maybe a nice mixer and things. And it kind of blew up. And in our second year, we had like 250 members, and we had to find like a commercial kitchen to bake in and things like that. It was a bit crazy, but got loads of skills from that. And I was also on RAD committee, which is raising and giving. So that's kind of like putting on charity events, fundraising for different charities. And I was a peer mentor and a course rep. I was also a student ambassador at Open Days. And then in the summer between first and second year, I did Camp America, which is where you basically go and work in a summer camp in America for a few months. And I was actually based in the kitchens there. Wouldn't recommend going and being based in the kitchens. The counsellors had a lot more fun, the ones that are actually working with the kids. And then I also in third year set up my own business called Clare Squares, where I sold baked goods, so like brownies and fudge and anything square shaped. And the university actually helped me kind of set that up. So they have, as part of the career service, a thing that used to be called Rise Up back in my day, but now it's called Startup, where they help people that want to kind of set up their own business, do entrepreneurial kind of things. They can give you funding and advice and stuff like that. So they really helped me out. So I did loads of fun things at university, got loads of skills and loads of experiences from these, but still at the end of university, I was kind of like, I don't know what to do next. I didn't really fancy working in a lab and doing like the same kind of experiments over and over again. And I wasn't really sure what else I could do. I quite liked studying animals, finding out about animals. I'm also allergic to fur, so that ruled out a lot of the fun animals. So I was kind of stumped again. So when I graduated from university, my first job was actually in a cake shop, worked as a baker, all my baking experience. And I really loved that. It was a fun job. It was actually in Cake Stories in Jesmond, if anyone's been. And then my mum was kind of like, you've got a degree, maybe you should use it. So I thought, okay, maybe I'll look for other things. And then I got a job in marketing for a little bit, and that was kind of a fixed term placement. And that was quite nice, but I kind of realized in doing that I really missed science and talking about science, learning about science and learning about different things. So then I looked for other things, and I found a job back at the university called a graduate ambassador. And that's part of that job is to go out to schools and talk to young people about science and develop activities to try and engage them and things like that. And I thought that sounded great because I get to talk about science all the time, but I don't have to like do science. So that kind of led me into my career in outreach. So I got that job. That was a 1-year job. And then at the end of that year, I kind of got a promotion almost into the job that I'm doing now as an outreach officer. And that kind of opened my eyes to this world of science communication, which is a whole field in itself, which is just essentially communicating science to non-scientists. And I found that really interesting. So alongside my job, I started doing a part-time master's degree, which was all like online, like virtual, even before COVID. And it took 3 years, but I had finished it last summer. So yeah, I did a master's in science communication and public engagement with the University of Edinburgh. And even though Edinburgh is not that far from here, I never had to go there apart from my graduation, and those people all over the world on the course. So it's quite interesting. And as part of that course, I did lots of different modules. So I did science education, which I absolutely smashed my assignment in that, because it was to make a resource for teachers, which I do all the time in my day job. So I was like, I've got this. But I also learned loads of other bits of science communication that I hadn't really kind of had any experience in before. So things like science in the media, so like working with like journalists and things like that, creative arts and science, policy and practice, so like working alongside government to change policies and laws, and then also looking at museum exhibitions as well. And we did things on like social media, on like dialogues with the public, on like controversies like the what's it called, MMR jab, autism, like anti-vax, that kind of stuff. Like that's, a lot of that is a good example of why science communication is really important, because when it's not communicated well, things get a little bit crazy and there's bad consequences. So it's a really important field. And I really wanted to do the master's in it because I wanted to get a little bit more experience alongside the work I was already doing, because that's just in quite a small area of science communication. So I wanted to be able to have a bit of a broader knowledge base. So if in the future, if I want to explore different areas or get jobs in different areas, I've got a good qualification that will hopefully help me do that. And then as part of my dissertation for my master's, so the dissertation is a project that you do at the end of, usually you do one at the end of your undergraduate degree, and you'll do one at the end of your master's degree as well. And it's basically a big project, usually a research-based project, but we could do it where we develop something, a resource, and we could choose anything we wanted. So I chose for my dissertation to write children's stories that feature science in them, and kind of get feedback from teachers and parents, and kind of see if we can incorporate science into kind of the sort of everyday like bedtime routine and make it more of a everyday thing for children, and kind of, you don't, like, your parents don't need to be experts to help you with your science homework, and they could just read you a book and give you like extra little science bits here and there, and how that can kind of build this thing called their science capital and hopefully lead them to be more interested in science when they're older. So these are just some of the books that I wrote for my dissertation, and I've since gone on to self-publish these as well, which is really cool. That's something that I've always wanted to do. So I feel like I've kind of come like full circle back to my artsy days of my first year of A-levels, when I wanted to be all creative, and I've actually used my English language AS and my art AS, and I've written and illustrated books, but they're about science, so kind of incorporating everything. But yeah, that's pretty much me. That's where I'm at today. I'm still working at the uni, but with a master's degree, and I've written some books as well. So I'm happy to answer some questions at the end, but I think Kate's going to talk to you first.
Thank you, Claire. That's brilliant.
Right.
Thank you. So we're going to go straight on to Katy next.
Right, hi everyone. So I'm Katy Barrett, and I work for Natural England at the moment. But just to give you a bit of a sort of overview as to how I've got to my current role and what my sort of career path has been so far. So at Newcastle University, I initially studied marine zoology. So I did an undergrad in marine zoology. And that basically stemmed from sort of an interest in science from a young age. I wasn't very creative at all, probably the opposite to Claire. I was very sciencey and into that sort of thing. And I also learnt to scuba dive when I was about 15, which I was very fortunate to do. But I sort of thought, why can't I do, science and marine biology? Let's try and do this as a career. So I did sciencey A-levels at sixth form, and then started my undergraduate degree. So this was a 3-year course, as most undergraduate degrees are. And this course was quite a good combination of sort of like lab work and field work and survey work as well. So it was a good mixture, and then of course lectures as well. But two of the field trips that you could do as well throughout the course was one to Scotland, which I guess isn't so glamorous, but then one of the other field trips that we had the opportunity to go to was either Portugal or Bermuda, and the university actually helped to subsidize subsidize that trip for you. So it's a fantastic opportunity, and obviously a lot more tropical and a bit interesting to see, you know, a different country, different marine ecosystems, different marine life. So that was really cool. So yeah, and then part of our sort of third year dissertation project, we also had the opportunity to go abroad if we wanted to. So it was sort of at our own discretion, really, if we wanted to seek opportunities elsewhere, if we wanted to do a project within the university. But I was very lucky at the time that the uni had really strong connections with an institute in the Bahamas. So I sort of used that connection and went over there with a couple of friends, course mates, and we studied over there for about 8 weeks, which was fantastic. And yeah, I guess another thing just to mention was why marine zoology, why is that different to biology? It's very much the same thing, very, very similar. The only difference with marine zoology is that it's a bit more focused on the biology side. So we actually shared some of our modules with the biology undergraduate students. So similar to what Claire was saying, so we did some modules on genetics and microbiology, as well as the sort of straight marine biology modules as well. So it was a bit more to do with sort of the physiology of the animals and that sort of thing, their behaviours, which I found quite interesting. But other than that, it's very, very similar to marine biology. It's pretty much the same thing. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed my 3 years at uni and decided to stay next year and do a master's. So the master's course that I did was a bit more focused. So the marine zoology degree was quite broad. We did lots of different topics, looking at oceanography, marine creatures, you know, invertebrates, vertebrates, lots of different elements. And then the master's course was quite a focused course. So this was sort of, how do you apply all that knowledge you've gained in the real world in a job? So the master's was called International Marine Environmental Consultancy. And this was just a year course. So this was quite intense compared to the 3 years of undergraduate degree. But it was really, really valuable experience. And as part of the course, we were able to do another sort of dissertation project, but we could use that as sort of like working as like a consultancy and work with a client. So that was a really great opportunity to work with an organisation that perhaps you maybe wanted to work for in the future. Or were interested in. So that was really, really, really valuable. And yeah, I just wanted to sort of talk to you about what happened after uni and in between uni and sort of my job now. So as I've sort of mentioned, I did my undergraduate degree in marine zoology. And then the summer in between my undergrad and my master's, I got some work experience. So I completed my PADI dive master certification. So that meant that I could actually work as a dive master if I wanted to. I also got some consultancy experience because I hadn't really worked or was familiar with consultancy work and what that was. So I managed to get an internship in the Maldives, which was fantastic. So that was sort of a expenses all paid for trip, and I just had to work for them, got fed and everything. It was fab. So yeah, I managed to find that somewhere in the depths of Facebook. And then I also did a consultancy placement with AMEC, which is a consultancy based in Gosforth, so just, you know, in Newcastle around the corner. And it meant that I had a good variety of experience before actually starting my master's in consultancy. So that was great. And then after I graduated from my master's degree, I actually saw it was a maternity cover post at Newcastle University, and it was as a marine education officer. So a very similar role to what Claire's doing now, but just more specifically about marine science and sort of sharing the joys of marine science with the wider public. So I was teaching kids from sort of nursery age all the way up to undergrad level as well. And yeah, it was a fantastic first job, if you like. I was planning career fairs, summer schools and sort of similar events to this as well. So it provided me with a lot of skills that perhaps I needed to sort of work on since leaving uni and really, really develop. So following that job, it was only sort of a 10, 11 month position being maternity cover. But it was just seemed to be right place, right time, a job in Natural England came available. And Natural England have an office in Newcastle as well. I'm from Newcastle originally, so you can probably tell a little bit from my accent, but I knew I wanted to stay in this area and wanted to stay local. And yeah, it just so happened that a job came up in this region. So I was really, really, really lucky. So I'll talk to you a little bit more about Natural England now. And I appreciate that you're probably not familiar with who Natural England are or what we do. So we're a statutory nature conservation body. So that basically means that we advise the government in terms of nature. So areas that need to be protected for their wildlife or important species and habitats, we provide advice to the government on that. So because of my background and my remit, I'm on the marine side. So that also includes like the coast and beaches and that sort of intertidal area. But we go out to 12 nautical miles. So you can see on the map, hopefully on the picture, it's quite far offshore, but that's sort of where our remit lies. So as part of my job in Natural England, what I was doing in the Northumbria team, which was where my first job was based, was I was providing advice to developers and also the likes of the Marine Management Organisation, which is a body that provides licenses to developers and licenses for anybody really who wants to do anything in the ocean. And I was advising on whether the area that they were doing it in was suitable. Is there a protected species there that needs to be avoided? Is there a colony of seals there that shouldn't be disturbed, etc. So that was my first role. And I was focused in the Northumbria area, which is from Barrett down to Teesmouth. So it's quite a big area, big region to cover. And whilst I was in that team, I managed to get a promotion. So I moved up a grade to a lead advisor. So I was working on very similar stuff. But I was also responsible officer for a number of sites. So sites such as the Fearon Islands, which you might be familiar with, and Coca Island, which have big bird breeding colonies and seal colonies. So I was sort of responsible for those sites and how they were managed and monitored, which was really interesting. And then just in the last sort of year or so, I've been able to get another promotion. So I'm now a senior advisor, but I'm now working in a national team. So within Natural England, we have a number of these regional teams, such as Northumbria, all the way around England. And then we have sort of these national teams that sit higher and kind of oversee all of the area teams. So I'm now in a national team, which is quite fun and different. I'm not just focused on Northumbria and looking sort of all over the country. But I'm working on a project at the moment called Highly Protected Marine Areas. So some of you might have heard of this. It's been in the media recently. But Highly Protected Marine Areas is a new thing for English waters. It's really exciting. And they're taking this what's called whole site approach. So instead of looking at marine protected areas and protecting features such as seals or birds and habitats such as mussel beds or kelp or whatever, we're looking at the site from a whole approach. So everything within the site is protected. And as well as that, at the moment in our marine protected areas, activities are ongoing. So they're a protected site, but some activities are still able to happen. Whereas in highly protected marine areas, the idea is that no activity is to occur and that the site is just left to recover. So the ultimate goal for these sites is recovery. So it's really exciting. You might have heard of similar projects on land where they're like rewilding areas and just letting nature do its thing. That's the same sort of kind of concept, but in the sea. So like I say, it's all new and it's all sort of a pilot at the moment, and we're all testing this idea and see what's going to happen. But yeah, that's a little bit about what my role is at the moment. And just to finish, I just wanted to give you some like top tips for uni. I had to really think about this because it seems like a long time ago, but I think one of my like key top tips is to just do what you enjoy and what interests you, because if you do that, you're bound to do it well, I find anyway. Doing essays and listening to lectures won't be boring if you really enjoy the topic. As well, just to learn as much as you can from the people around you. Some of the lecturers and academics at unis have so much experience and so many different contacts. just really use them as much as you can. And also in the similar vein, the facilities in the uni, obviously my experience is from the marine side of things. So we had, the Dove Marine Laboratory, which is in Cullercoats, and there's a university vessel, a boat as well, that we were able to use. But even other aspects of the university, as Claire mentioned, like the career service, there's so many different things that are amazing, and take full advantage of those. And also make some strong connections if you can, if there's connections within the uni already with different organizations or different placement opportunities, like really use them. Try and choose topics that you're interested in for maybe a potential career when you're looking at your dissertation. It's very easy to get overexcited and think, oh, I'll study this random topic for my dissertation, but is it actually going to be useful? You can get something that's a combination of the two. That's the win-win scenario. But then also just to make the most of your summers in between, studying. Again, work experience, work placements, internships, whatever you can is really, really valuable. And then just to keep everything up to date in terms of your CV, and even if it's just making a note of all these things that you're doing throughout your university time, I find it's really useful even now, just to try and remember what you've done, the skills you've learned and gained and that sort of thing. I find it quite useful just to keep a note of that somewhere. But yeah, I think that was everything I had on my presentation.
Thank you very, very much, Katie. And another fascinating story, taking you through from, your degree right the way through. So brilliant. Thank you so much. So we've now got some time for questions from you. So how long did it take you before you got your first job after graduation?
So for me, I suppose I got my first job at the cake shop before I graduated. So I think I applied for that maybe around the May time. I was still doing exams, and I asked if I could start after I finished my exams, and they were quite happy to allow that. So I started I think the week after my last exam. But then my first proper job, as my mum would call it, I started that in I think September time after my graduation, so a few months afterwards. But a lot of people apply for jobs kind of earlier on in third year, apply for things called graduate schemes, which you tend to apply to the few different stages of interviews and assessment centres and things like that, and they kind of run throughout third year, and then they'll all start in September or the summer. But that just sort of passed me by. I didn't really think about getting a job until right at the end of university, but it worked out all right for me. So yeah, and I had some friends that didn't work for a while afterwards and went traveling and did other things. So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much if you don't have a job straight away after university.
Yeah, it does vary. I see people who are, they've got it sorted and, they're fairly early on, and then other people who, it's a bit later down the line, and, it's fine. So, okay, thanks, Claire. What about you, Katie, then, getting your first job? How long did it take?
Yeah, it was sort of similar to Claire, really, but the first job I had as marine education officer after my after my master's degree, I got that quite quickly, and then following that I found it quite difficult to get the next job lined up. I remember applying for quite a few different things and nothing seemed to fit, and then sort of all of a sudden the one that I got was the right one. So I guess just to say, when that time comes, if things don't happen straight away, not to be dismayed, because I think applying for jobs is a full-time job. It's hard work, and I think it's fine to recognize that and to acknowledge that. So if you're working whilst trying to apply for your next job, it is hard. So yeah, just to kind of cut yourself some slack, I guess, and it'll work out eventually.
Yeah, and as you said, there's a lot of support available when people are at that point from the career service, so you can access that. You're not alone in doing that. So marvellous. Kate, who is in the group.
Katy, I suppose first for you, you mentioned, you're doing your environmental consultancy masters, and you did a couple of projects in environmental consultancy, and the consultancy type of job role is talked about a lot, but often it's not actually something that sort of students understand or know what it is that you do as a consultant. So, when you were doing your project or in those experiences, what do you do on a day-to-day as a science or an environmental consultant?
Yeah, that's a difficult question. So I'm not technically a consultant now, I guess, just as a caveat. It was a lot of writing of documents and sort of pulling things together and reviewing evidence, reviewing things and sort of summarizing that in a document. But as part of being a consultant, there is an element of sort of field work to that. So you might have to undertake, I don't know, monitoring study, for example, for a client that needs doing. Trying to think of another examples. Say there was going to be an offshore wind farm off the northeast coast. A developer might employ a consultant to do a monitoring study, see what's there, to see if they could lay a cable there. So it's a lot of work, but it can be interesting. But I found my interests really lied where sort of the marine protection side of things and how we protect our oceans and establishing a network of MPAs and advising the government on that. That was sort of more my cup of tea, if you like, as opposed to advising a consultant, a developer from like a consultancy side. Yeah.
So if the things that you're doing, obviously at the moment you're finding more interesting, what's been your most sort of recent favourite day that you've had in your job?
I think every day is different, which is good, but obviously hectic. But I think just getting out and about, any day where you're sort of out and seeing the sites that you're protecting and seeing the species and habitats that you're protecting is really cool. Why you're doing the job you're doing, and sort of seeing that you're making a difference. I think that's probably the most sort of, rewarding part of the job, for sure.
What about you, Claire? Favorite day recently in your role?
So many. Sometimes it is like quite full on and stressful, like when we have an event or like loads of students here, we're doing like the same workshop loads and loads of times. But it is quite nice, like if I've organised an event and it's like pulling it all together and it's all like actually finally seeing it happen, and then getting like nice feedback and comments and seeing that you've actually like helped people and like inspired them a bit. I think that's really like a nice part of the job. And then sometimes we get to do cool things like with the Hancock Museum across the road and other things like that. So we get to do lots of fun stuff as well and meet lots of interested people, lots of really cool scientists and engineers, and find out what they do. So I can't think of like one particular day, but there's like lots of bits that I really enjoy.
I'd just be interested to know, what difference did being at university make to you? If you could sum up, your thoughts on that one.
I think just university, I wouldn't have done anything that I've done if I didn't go to university. It kind of like just started everything. Like I didn't really know what I was going to do before coming to university, and it's like opened my eyes to so many different things and like so many different like people as well, like meeting people from all over the world. And like even like when I worked like in baking and like did Camp American, working in the kitchen there, like I wouldn't have done any of that if I didn't come to university, because I didn't really realize that like not everyone can bake that well. Like I thought it was pretty basic, but then like even just in first year, like baking for our flatmates, and they all thought it was amazing, and then they encouraged like to like set up the society and then set up my business and stuff like that. Like I didn't think it was anything special before like meeting other people and doing stuff like that. So even though like being a baker, you don't need to have a university degree to do that, like I wouldn't have necessarily gone down that path if I didn't go to university. And then of course I wouldn't have done like the job that I had in marketing or the job that I'm doing now in outreach. Like I needed to have a degree to do those jobs. So it's definitely done a lot for me. I don't know where I would be if I didn't go to university.
So it's kind of ideas and it's networks.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Just like a whole different perspective on life, and just, seeing and meeting so many different people.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. What about you, Katy?
Similar, I guess. And I think for me, specifically doing marine science, it wasn't a topic that we ever studied at school or at A-level, or, it was something totally new that I knew I wanted to learn more about, but I only really knew the basics going into it. So I found that was, it was so exciting to finally do a topic that I was really interested in. And then to also be working in that field. I know a lot of the people I actually studied with went on to do other things. They didn't do anything in marine. I think one of them was even now paramedic. There was quite a few of us that did continue on the sort of marine career path. And for me, it's obviously everything's a job, but it's just so much more enjoyable when it's something that you're interested in, that you're passionate about. Just watching a documentary on the TV about marine science when you're at university studying marine science is classed as revision. It's really great. So of course, meeting new people, and also I was lucky with my course that I was able to travel a bit as well, even just to Scotland. It was quite a cool field trip.
Yeah.
Katy, you mentioned that obviously that you got to go to Scotland, you got to do sort of work experience. Clare, obviously when you were at university you did loads of sort of extracurriculars and things like that. What would be your advice to students who are looking for work experience, either in the science communication outreach, or in the sort of even with Natural England? What would be your advice to students who are looking for those opportunities throughout university?
Well, I would first off say use the university. I'm guessing Clare might have a few contacts and that sort of thing, being an outreach officer. But yeah, I think online is really a really good place to look for these sorts of things. Like I was saying, I found that opportunity in the Maldives on Facebook. There's loads of groups for marine careers in specifically. I'm not really sure. I think just go to different events. If there's careers events on at the uni, or even elsewhere, it doesn't have to just be at your university. And just contact people, get your name out there, and send emails. I mean, we had in Natural England, we had an intern a couple of years ago who worked with us for a few months, and she'd basically just sent us an email and asked, and I read the email, I was like, yeah, okay. So, things like that can happen. I think it's important to remember that people working in all these different organizations you're interested in, they're just people. And chances are they might find your help in terms of an internship really valuable, and there might be something that they need doing that they just don't have time to do. So you could, be a win-win situation for both of you. But I don't know if Clare has any other tips.
I was going to say, just do try and do some work experience, because I didn't really do any when I was at uni. I did a lot of extracurricular activities and volunteering and things like that, but nothing really related to jobs and careers and work around my degree. So that's why I worked in a cake shop when I graduated, because I didn't know what I wanted to do and I didn't have much experience. But even the experience doesn't necessarily it gives you skills and experience to get a job, but it also just gives you an insight into whether you would want to do that when you graduate as well. So trying out a few different things, I think, is a really good thing to do. And also if you want to work in outreach, then there's things like our street science team and student ambassadors that work for the university and do that kind of thing. There's also the Hancock Museum and the Discovery Museum. They take volunteers. The Life Centre take students on to be science explainers, which is a part-time job as well. So there's lots of things like that you can do if you're interested in this kind of thing, or even if you're interested in science journalism, you can write for the Courier, which is the student newspaper. But yeah, and also speak to Kate and Lisa from the Career Service, because they can help you a lot more than we can as well.
We have a question from Scott. So Scott's asking, what are the main skills you think you have developed along your journeys? Great question.
So many skills. I think I've definitely developed a lot of organisation skills and time management skills, because I did so much different things when I was at uni. I had to like learn to balance them all and still actually do my degree. And then when I did my part-time masters as well, I was doing that alongside full-time work. So again, trying to balance everything, it's quite a lot. And definitely like communication skills as well from the various jobs I've had, like communicating in different ways to different people is quite an important skill. I'm sure there's loads more, but I'll give Katy a go.
Katy.
Yeah, I guess just reiterating what Claire said, organisation is a major one for me. I'm now a mum as well, so I've got a little boy, he's about 21 months old. So being organised is essential for me, just to try and get everything done. And what's the other thing? I guess like it goes along with communication, but being able to work with sort of different partners from different places. And I guess you start to develop that at uni if you're doing like group projects or working together as a team to deliver something. And I think that sort of goes, in my experience, throughout your career as well. You know, you're not just working within your organisation, you're working with loads of other different people from different places with different priorities as well. So I think that's another really important skill I've developed.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, if you're applying for a job, often an employer is going to ask you about those kind of skills as well. So, you know, communication, team working, time management, planning, you know, all of those sorts of areas on top of your technical expertise as well. So it's useful to hear, you know, those sorts of skills. So, okay, you did touch on, I think it was possibly you, Katy, around work-life balance a little bit. So, you know, obviously you've got the added, you know, pressure of a little one now as well. But I just wondered if you could both just comment on the experience of working, but, you know, having balance to your life in terms of doing, you know, hobbies, going on holiday, you know, kind of, you know, the pressure that's there. Is that something that's reasonable, or, you know, what's your views?
Obviously I can only speak for Natural England, but our sort of work policy is very flexible. So I mean, I know we were all working from home in COVID, but I'm still working from home now. And I had the ability to work from home before COVID as well. So just having that flexibility, if that's the way you like to work. Obviously, alternatively, if you prefer to be in the office and you have the opportunity to be in the office as well. We have, I think it's 33 days holiday, which is considered, you know, a canny number of days holiday. And then, yeah, just like the relaxed attitude, I guess, to work, in terms of you just kind of trusted to get on with your job and people aren't sort of breathing down your neck, micromanaging you. And yeah, you're just really valued and appreciated in your team. And I think that's really important. I think no matter how much you're getting paid, if you're not feeling appreciated and valued in your job and trusted, I just think it's not worth it. And yeah, as well with the flexibility and work-life balance, that's a major thing for Natural England. And you know, it's always being commented on, you know, do you have a good work-life balance? Are you happy? Do you need time off? You know, that sort of thing. So it's really important. And I think, yeah, hopefully a lot of organisations seem to be doing things that way now.
Claire, just what's about your thoughts on that one with your area of work?
Yeah, so my area of work is quite flexible because of like the nature of my job. I like sometimes we'll have to do weekends, like we did the open day recently. Sometimes we'll be traveling back kind of in the evening if we're going far away, but we always kind of get that time back. So we'll get paid for overtime, so it kind of balances out. And I quite like going on holiday a lot and traveling, and I can squeeze a lot out of my holiday days. I don't get quite as many as Katy. I think I get 27, but then university shuts down over Christmas, so we don't have to take days off then, so that's quite nice. So this year so far I managed to go to 6 different countries, and then I'm going to Morocco at the end of the summer, so I make the most of my holiday days. And I think we do have a really good work-life balance here. I know in other sectors, like my partner works in finance at one of like the big 4 financial firms, and his work-life balance is atrocious, and I have to like drag him on holidays. Sometimes he even brings his work laptop, and it really annoys me. But he like sometimes works really late at night, and even though he can work from home more now, it's still like it just doesn't switch off. So I think we're quite lucky, but yeah, some of the places are still like quite backwards and old-fashioned, and they're just kind of expected to finish their work no matter like how long it takes. Even though they're contracted a certain number of hours, they are expected to work more, which is not fair, but they don't listen to me. But the university in this kind of field, I think a lot of like in the science kind of field, it's a lot more kind of, these are your hours, you just need to do your hours, and then that after that it's free time kind of thing, and a lot more flexible, like Katy said, working from home and things like that.
So you've got to research your organisation, haven't you, when you're at that point?
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask one more question that's popped in the chat, and then I've got a final question as well. So Maya has put in, what is your top experience in your journeys? I'm assuming this is a positive experience.
So I think mine was maybe during my first year working at the university, we were invited to a science festival in Hong Kong, and they flew us out there, paid for everything. It was really nice, and I'd never been to Asia before, so that was a really exciting experience for me. And we had like a couple of days where we could go sightseeing, and then we also extended the trip so we could visit some schools out there as well. And it was really interesting just seeing like the difference in like kids the same age but in Hong Kong rather than the UK, and they like so intelligent and like all perfect English, and yeah, it was just a really cool experience. And yeah, that's something that I will never forget, because we usually get to travel that far unless someone else is paying, so that was quite a treat for us.
Experience to go somewhere and just be really blown away by it as well. So Katy, what about you?
Yeah, I would say sort of the 2 trips that I did in my undergrad to Bermuda and the Bahamas was absolutely amazing. So yeah, similar to Clare, I guess. But one other thing that sort of sticks out in my mind is just graduating. I think I was the first person in my family to go to university. And yeah, like my whole family, not just my, that sort of thing. So it was a really big achievement. And I think it was something that myself and like my whole family were proud of, and also to do something. I was quite similar to Clare. I didn't do too well in my A levels initially, and sort of didn't enjoy the first subjects that I chose, and then finally got the grades I needed to study marine biology, and to actually go from there to then graduating, I felt like I'd really succeeded, and it was a really big achievement. Even though I wasn't really thinking about work at that time, it was just like I've done it. I've got to where I want to be.
It's a wonderful day, isn't it? Just amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
Big relief as well.
Yeah, yes, indeed. So the final question is, what one bit of advice would you give to our partner students here this afternoon? Is there just one thing that you would give advice for?
I would say just try, do as many things as you can when you're at uni, and just take all the opportunities that come your way. Because you never know what you're going to get out with them, or who you're going to meet, or kind of what skills you'll gain from them, or where it will lead you. So just try lots of things, especially if you're not really sure what you want to do after university, because you might find you actually discover something as part of a society that you really want to pursue, or from a certain work experience placement or something else, or meeting an employer at a careers event. You don't know. So just obviously make enough time for your actual degree work and go to all your lectures, but yeah, try and take on as many other opportunities and part-time jobs, volunteering, societies, all that kind of stuff. Just throw yourself in and do as much as you can.
Thank you. Katy?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. I think not to ignore that your degree will come to an end at some point, and that you have to sort of think beyond that. And I know it's really daunting, and I'm definitely one of those people who's just I'll think about it later. But you don't have to think about it thoroughly, but just even have it in your mind sometimes when you're talking to different lecturers, or even to other students who are in other higher years, or postgraduate students that are around you, and just try and just make networks, make connections with different people that you feel might be valuable to you. It sounds quite selfish, but university is about getting the most out of it and developing yourself as much as you can. So
yeah, okay, I like that. Just say yes. I think that's good. That's good. Okay, all right. So I just want to say thank you so much to Katy and to Clare for giving an hour of the time this afternoon and coming along and being so open and honest about their history, their career now, and for giving those great valuable tips. So thank you very, very much indeed.